Lifeweaver has finally been added to comp, and in this video we're going to be breaking down Lifeweaver's power level and how Lifeweaver is most likely the weakest released character that we've ever seen, some of the problems with the character, how Blizzard should go about fixing this character or buffing this character if at all, and what should happen from here. But make sure you smash the like, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and let's get into the video. Now, I know that it's kind of par for the course for a character to get released, players to talk about how the character needs nerfs even though the character is secretly good, and then the character gets buffed and it gets overbuffed. So before we even talk about the problems with Lifeweaver, I want to make it clear that the solution is not to super buff this character in every way imaginable, because that exact thing could easily happen. But after grinding this character myself and losing, like almost all my games, watching streamers like Fitzy and Defran do the same thing, and the general consensus throughout the majority of ranks is that if the enemy team has a Lifeweaver, you're most likely going to win, or you have a huge chance of winning. The Lifeweaver has a really cool kit, so what exactly are those problems? First off, let's talk about low damage. Lifeweaver's damage is really low. And if you look at Lifeweaver's kit, Lifeweaver is a character that doesn't actually provide that much burst heals to a large amount of people. You can't like fully keep a tank up and multiple people up at the same time. Unlike a character like an Ana, you can't really top everyone up that fast. And if you get behind on healing, you can easily just spend the entire time healing, non-stop, healing. And this has been done before. There's characters that don't have a crazy amount of healing, like Zen or Kiriko. However, these characters have a means to have impact with their damage that Lifeweaver just doesn't have, like at all. Like, this damage is so minute. If you put yourself up on a platform, you're not threatening anybody, and when you're just poking from distance, you're not threatening anybody as well. Not to mention, this character can't do something like go on a flank like Kiriko can, with a very slow time to kill and no real legitimized escape. You're not going to be able to pull that off without getting punished and killed. So damage is a piece of the utility pie on Lifeweaver that is just completely missing, and it's a very important one to have if you're going to keep Lifeweaver in this current state. So then it's kind of been realized that Lifeweaver oftentimes plays like a brig or a bodyguard character, someone that is primarily heal botting and protecting people from bad positionings and healing them up. But the problem is, when you get behind on that healing and you're just constantly healing, you're someone that feels like you are constantly just losing an inevitable battle where you can't keep everyone healed up, you can't pivot to do anything aggressive because you have no damage, and when you're on the back foot, your pull doesn't really do all that much, and it's much better to trade your pull for like an aggressive play and then bail someone out of it who would have gotten traded, which is just not the case when you are so far behind. And these two problems of being put into a heal botting playstyle, which is just not very strong, and having low damage is compounded by the fact that you have no fight winning impactful abilities. There's some abilities like Discord that just give you a huge advantage just from naturally being out, and the longer the fight goes on, the more likely you are to get a breakpoint or some impactful pick from your team. There's abilities like Nade, which could get a 3-man nade and just completely turn the fight on its head. So not only are you slotted into a heal botting playstyle because you can't flank or be aggressive because you do no damage, but your heal botting is worse than a lot of other heals that are in the game, takes longer to do, and you can't top up tanks quickly, heal people very quickly at all. Oftentimes you get really behind, so you have low overall healing, and then you have no impactful way to just win a team fight. Sure, you can save somebody, but I'm talking about breaking the parity in your side, like actually turning the advantage to your team's advantage. You don't have anything to do that. All you can do is bail out the teammates from your opponent's aggressive plays, which is cool, but doesn't have nearly the impact as something used offensively or aggressively to shift the tides of the fight in your team's favor. Now, this is all more compounded by the fact that this character has a huge hitbox, like a giant freaking hitbox, one of the biggest hitboxes in the game, the biggest squishy hitbox by far. And remember what I said, you play Lifeweaver oftentimes like you play Brig, right? You're playing a bodyguard playstyle. You can't go aggressively, you can't go for flanks or do anything like that because you don't have good mobility, so you'll just get pushed and killed most of the time, and you're huge and you don't have any damage, so you can't duel people. Plus you're huge, so it's hard to duel people. But even when you're playing back with your team passively, you're like a brig that doesn't have a shield or armor. Like, you are super fragile. Sure, you can protect other people, but you can't protect yourself. You can't keep yourself alive. And Lifeweaver just becomes super bad against characters that want to dive Lifeweaver, push Lifeweaver, dive characters, period. Just feast on this character. And this character wants to play, or is being forced to play, this like bodyguard playstyle, but doesn't really have the capability or the facilities to enable it. Like, if they wanted to enable that, they could give Lifeweaver more health. They could give Lifeweaver armor or something along those lines. But honestly, I think that is really underutilizing the kit of this character, as this character has so much cool potential if many of these problems were in place. Now, we do lead into the other problem, which is platform, and the reality of platform is that most people are not going to care about platform. And this is where I need to make a clear distinction between soloing and duoing. I think that you can get value as a duo or a trio with Lifeweaver if you have very specific people utilizing the platform, right? Some hit scans getting to the high ground on like New Bonnie, Anna's taking the high ground for an aggressive nade. Of course, all of this proactive stuff comes from someone else. It doesn't come from you, so you can't create it, you can only enable it. So in a duo or a trio, you can make it work, although I think that it's just most of the time better to have your own form of proactivity or your own form of breakpoint enabling. Even something like Mercy damage boost adds more to the overall fight proactively than all of the damage that Lifeweaver could bring, or all the proactive abilities that Lifeweaver has. Now, there could be small changes to make people care about the platform a little bit more. DeFran on stream suggests giving like the pad maybe a little bit of healing so that people are more likely to jump on it. And I kind of like that idea. It's pretty cool and not too big of a buff or anything like that. It just encourages your teammates to do what they should be doing anyways, but I don't really think that solves Lifeweaver's problem at all. Now, something else is that pulling people oftentimes is hard to do perfectly. Like, it's hard to know sometimes in a very complicated fight whether or not someone you're pulling needs you to pull them, or whether you shouldn't pull them at all. It's very hard, especially when there's all this visual clutter, or you're getting dove and maybe you're about to die, so you feel like you need to get value out of your ability, so you kind of throw it out. Unlike something like Suzu, where you could throw Suzu even if you're like a little bit unsure, and then you can evaluate if it was bad or good, but it's not going to kill anyone or deny a play. This could completely mess up a play if you do it wrong. So you're super heavily punished for doing it wrong, and you're oftentimes getting less value than a Suzu because this is a tempo negative ability. You have a Cassidy that's pushing an angle and they get weak, you could pull them out of the fight, sure, and that's going to heal them up. You're going to have to spend time healing them up after the fact anyway, but Suzuing them allows them to maintain the tempo they gained, maintain the ground they gained, maybe win a duel, maybe continue to create space or hold space, but pulling removes that space. So you're tempo negative in pulling people out of the fight while being simultaneously worse most of the time than something like Nade, something like Suzu. And I think the only example where it might be a little bit better is against a tank, when you're pulling a tank out of the fight. But this is such a hard thing to do perfectly because, like I said, if you make one single mistake, you then take away all the space that your tank has claimed for your team, which is such a huge tempo negative swing that could lose you the fight outright. So all of these problems are just compounded on this character. That makes this character super bad, especially in solo queue, especially in the vast majority of ranks. And even a duo or trio that can make this character work, I think is just going to be worse than trying to work with a duo or trio with any other character. So I've said my piece about why this character needs work, but what do we do from here? How do we make this character good and give this character an identity that isn't just bad brig? I think first, Blizzard needs to decide what they want Lifeweaver to be or do. Like, how do they want Lifeweaver to operate? You want Lifeweaver to play at a distance, pedal himself up, control the battlefield, and potentially pull people to safety that he sees? Well, to enable that playstyle, you would need to, 1, up Lifeweaver's damage so that he can actually exist in the team fight from range, and 2, allow him to pull from a very long distance away. So those are 2 things that you would need to do if that was his predominant playstyle. You want Lifeweaver to be able to actually use his damage to duel, off angle, or potentially pull a teammate to help him, either to claim that off angle, help him control that space, or punish an enemy that is pushing him. Then you probably need to up Lifeweaver's damage and most likely give Lifeweaver a much smaller hitbox so he's not as easy to duel And if you want Lifeweaver to be a character that just predominantly heals and doesn't even focus on his damage all that much, he just uses it to get ultimate and heals a lot, make the heal less clunky, make the heal more capable of healing multiple targets, or make the heal something that you don't even have to charge. I think there's a number of ways you could balance the heal. One of my ideas was that you could spray out like orbs of healing that would then fly at the target that you assigned earlier after like maybe like half a second or like 0.75 of a second. So you could like spray out like 5 orbs, go to damage. As you're doing damage, your heal would fly to the target that you assigned earlier. So it's slightly delayed, but it is like a lot of heal, and you can go back and forth between healing and damage fast. I think that that's another way that you could kind of make it so it's less clunky and there's more uptime between your healing and your damage. Now, granted, I do think that every change that needs to be done to Lifeweaver should be done in small chunks, right? Slightly increase the damage, slightly decrease the hitbox, slightly make the heal better or less clunky. You know, things slightly over time. Maybe not all at once, maybe in small increments, so that we can get to a place where Lifeweaver starts to feel better. But ever let me know how you feel about Lifeweaver so far. How do you feel about the character's overall power level, and what buffs would you like to see, or nerfs, I guess, if any? Let me know in the comments down below. Smash the like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I will see you next time.